Hello and welcome to Ready Steady DIY. Today we'll be taking a look at a couple of different kinds of cables and the film industry's take on how to coil them. One thing the film and television industry does know rather well is cables. Every time a television show or a movie sets up in a studio or on location, a lot of cabling is needed in order to accomplish the day's tasks. We've learned a lot about how to set up a temporary electrical system, and I think the average homeowner or DIY person should know a couple of these things at least. Generally speaking, on a film or television set, you'll find three kinds of cables that can be coiled into a circle and held comfortably in one hand. These cables all get coiled to become essentially the same size and shape. There are, however, two techniques that people use depending on the kind of cable. Electrical cables, or what the film and television industry calls AC cables, or stingers, tend to be coiled using the over-over technique. Cables that are thinner and more delicate and carry data, like XLR cables or BNC cables, tend to get coiled with the over-under technique. Today I'm going to go over how to do both and what the pluses and minuses are of each. If you're a homeowner and you wrap the cable of your hairdryer around its handle to put it away, I think there's something in the way the film industry coils cables that might be of value to you. Let's get into it. So I hold the cable firmly in my right hand, giving it a little pinch between my thumb and forefinger. That keeps it from twisting. I slide my left hand's thumb and forefinger down the length of the cable. You can see right away where gloves would come in handy. If the cable's dirty, you want to protect yourself. Cables go in some pretty gross places. And now, in order to form the loop, give it a little twist. The twist helps you form the loop. I find using my thumb and forefinger the easiest. I roll my left forefinger back towards my body and push my thumb away from my body, twisting the cable, and it naturally forms into a loop. The loop is about the size of my head. Since when I was a young camera technician, I did this many times, my body has muscle memory to know exactly how far down the line I should move my left hand before pinching and rolling. Once you get used to that, every time you slide your left hand down the cable, it will be the same distance, and your loops, accordingly, will be the same size. Small variance is okay. So now I've created one loop, and it's in my right hand. I need some more loops. I slide my left hand down the cable again. Same distance. Pinch, twist, roll, and meet over at the right side. I do it again and again until I get to the end of the cable. If the last loop has to be a little smaller, that's okay. It'll just sit inside the other ones, happy as a bumblebee in summer. Then you take the cable tie, which is already attached, and you tie it up. When you do the over-over technique, you are twisting the cable with each loop. The whole cable is twisting, including the other end. You need the other end unplugged so that it can rotate in the direction of your twist. Otherwise, you're just creating tension on the cable, and that's not good. That's technically what we're trying to avoid here, right? The advantage to doing it this way is that if you happen to pick up the cable tomorrow and grab it at the wrong end and pull that end through the loops, it will still unfurl. It won't come out easy, but you won't create a knot either. XLR and BNC cables, the lighter cables, the ones that are more delicate, and the ones that transfer audio signals, video signals, timecode, and data, these tend to get wrapped over-under. Essentially, you start the same way as you do over-over. You start with an over. You grab the end of the cable in your one hand. For me, it'll be my right hand because I want the coil to end up in that hand because I'm right-handed. Run my fingers down the length of the cable an appropriate amount to make a loop the size of my head and give it a twist again. Since this is an overhand twist, that means my forefinger moves towards my body, my thumb moves away from my body. As I move my left hand towards my right hand, a loop naturally forms. I collect that loop in my right hand and move my left hand down the cable exactly the same length again. This time, however, I'm going to twist the opposite direction. I'll pinch the cable, and this time I will move my forefinger away from my body and my thumb towards my body, which initiates an action that gets my wrist to move up and under. I move it towards my right hand, and I gather that loop. It's an underhanded loop. So as opposed to making two overhanded loops, I've twisted this cable clockwise the first time and anti-clockwise the second time. The first loop twist negates the second loop twist. If you look at the opposite end of the cable, the one that's slowly moving towards me along the ground as I wrap this cable, that end of the cable is rotating to accommodate my twist, first clockwise and then anti-clockwise. If I were to pull apart a cable that I wrapped over, you would see that it wants to spring back together. It holds the tension I put into it by twisting the cable again and again in the same direction. Contrarily, if I pull apart a cable that I wrap in the over-under technique, it just comes apart flat, because the twist in each loop negates the twist in the loop next to it. Since the goal tomorrow is to put this cable out flat, this is a great way to make sure that happens. The downside to it is that if tomorrow when you're trying to put this cable out flat, you grab it by the wrong end and pull the wrong end through the other loops, you will create a series of knots that take a long time to get rid of. And you don't want to do that. It's a great way to make sure that there's no tension either when you're putting the cable away or when you're taking it out the next day, but it does have its pluses and minuses. Both over and over-under have pluses and minuses. Again, generally speaking, rental houses and film industry technicians will wrap an AC cable over and everything else over-under. But for you, the homeowner, all that matters is you want to get your cable into a manageable shape. You can practice this with just about any cable. Over or over-under, it doesn't matter. Smaller cables, of course, will wrap into smaller circles. A computer charging cable or a USB cable is just a smaller cable. So if you try to wrap it into circles the size of your head, you're only going to have one circle. Since that doesn't make sense, little cables like that tend to get wrapped into smaller circles. Once you get good at either the over or the over-under or both, you can come to Set and Work for me, but also you can fix a lot of problems you have in your house. You can stop wrapping the cable around the handle of your hairdryer. You can start putting little Velcro ties or little sash ties on everything. Before you put your drill battery charger away, you can put it away so the cable is protected. Once you start training a cable, it'll learn that shape and go back to it more easily each time you do it. Your cable's gonna last longer, the fibers inside the cable will avoid the damage that comes from kinks, the chance of shorts is greatly diminished, and it's gonna be more organized. What homeowner or DIY person wouldn't benefit from that? So whether you're planning on coming out to work for me, or whether you just wanna have a little bit more order to your cables, I'd say work on the over or over-under technique or both. If nothing else, you can impress your friends. So thanks very much for listening right to the end. I really appreciate that. If you like this, if it was of value to you, if there's any way you could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Even if you don't, please leave a comment. Comments help me make the channel better, and that's what I want.